Yo, what is good everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be breaking down this Week 8 NFL Draftkings Showdown slate between the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Baltimore Ravens. What I'm going to do here is break down a couple of my favorite captain plays, some of my favorite flex plays, and then we'll wrap up the video taking a look back at the Week 7 snap counts for both of these teams, showing you who is and isn't on the field. With that being said, let's dive into my spreadsheet here. And we're going to kick things off here like we always do in the top left-hand corner with those Vegas odds. You can see Baltimore is heading into Tampa Bay here, who is favored to win at -115. That caught me a little off guard. I thought the Ravens would have been favored here, but they aren't. And you can see Tampa is a 1-point favorite with an over-under there of 45 points. Now, I'll always have these showdown stats from 2021 listed behind me, but let me pop on over to this other spreadsheet here so you can read through these a little easier, and feel free to pause the video to read through these or even take a screenshot. With all that said, let's dive into a couple of my favorite captain plays here. And for those of you who are new to this channel, or at least new to this video, what I like to do on these showdowns is highlight a captain from both sides of the game. Starting on the Baltimore Ravens side of things here, I'm going to roll with Lamar Jackson. I would have loved to go with Mark Andrews here, but as you can see in the notes, he has yet to practice this week. I'll talk about him a little bit more once we get down into the flex plays, because if he does play, I obviously still like him. But Lamar's a good captain play as well, and probably offers the highest ceiling on this showdown slate. We go back to week 2 and 3 when he put up 43 and 48 DraftKings points. I don't know if anybody else on this slate can get there, especially multiple times in a season like we've seen Lamar do already. Now, he has kind of come back down to earth here over the past 4 weeks, but we know the upside is there. Now, he's also the most expensive player on this showdown slate, and I'm hoping that kind of drives down his captain ownership just a little bit. I do believe he's going to be a popular play either way, but at 17.7, that might scare some people off of him in the captain spot. Now, on the Buccaneers side of things here, I do believe there's a few different routes that we could go, but Chris Godwin is my preferred play, and we all know that the Buccaneers offense has really struggled this year, but the volume remains consistent for Chris Godwin. If we eliminate that week 1 matchup against the Dallas Cowboys where he did end up getting injured, he's played 4 games this year, and in 3 of those 4 games, he's seen at least 10 targets. So he's got that double-digit target upside, which I really like, especially in this matchup here against slot cornerback Damarian Williams, who's allowed a massive 76% catch rate this season. Godwin can definitely win that matchup more times than not. Now, the last thing I want to mention here is that Chris Godwin has not scored a touchdown this year, but does have 5 targets in the red zone, so I gotta believe that he's gonna find the end zone here sooner than later, and maybe even multiple times in the same game. Now, folks, before we dive into some of my favorite flex plays there, if you could like this video and subscribe to the channel, I would greatly appreciate that. Week 8, it's crazy to think we're this far into the NFL season already, but still a long ways to go, and I'm going to have content coming out for you guys for the remainder of the year. Alright, now let's dive into some of these flex plays here. We're going to kick it off with Mike Evans of the Buccaneers, who I do believe is a captain consideration as well. I'm going to have much more exposure to Chris Godwin than Evans, largely due to the matchup that Evans is going to have to face against Marlon Humphrey, one of the better cornerbacks in the NFL. But considering that Russell Gage is likely going to be out, Julio Jones is questionable, Cameron Brate is going to miss here, I just believe that Brady's going to have to force targets both Godwin and Evans' way, and we all know that Evans has that big play appeal. He could score a 40-yard touchdown in this game, and nobody would be surprised. In fact, he actually leads this team with 5 red zone targets this year, which is converted to 3 touchdowns. Now, just like I'm going to have more exposure to Chris Godwin than I will Mike Evans, I'm going to have more exposure to Lamar Jackson than I will Tom Brady. But considering it is a showdown slate, do we really fade this guy? I mean, would any one of us be shocked if he came out and threw for 3+ touchdowns on Thursday night? Yeah, probably not. We all know that this Buccaneers offense has not been very good to start the season, but we're talking about the GOAT here. Best quarterback of all time. Yeah, Brady's going to be in play considering it is a showdown, and if I'm playing him, it makes sense to stack him up with his pass catchers or even Leonard Fournette, because Brady is not going to run in 2 rushing touchdowns like Lamar Jackson could. Now we get to Mark Andrews here, who who I kind of name dropped earlier when I was going through the captain plays, because if he is a full go on Thursday, I definitely think that he's a captain consideration. But unfortunately, he has not practiced all week long and is going to be a game time decision. So we need to keep an eye on that, but assuming that he is in, hard to ignore his 31.5% target share this year and seeing 37.5% of the team's air yards. He's a red zone monster for Lamar Jackson as well, can definitely find the end zone and multiple times at that. If he does not end up playing, I do believe that Isaiah Likely comes into play, but just note, he'll likely be very popular as well. No, I did not intend for that to be wordplay. We then got Lenny Fournette there, who's also captain consideration in my opinion. I think the one cause for concern from last week is we saw Rachaad White play 43% of the offensive snaps. I don't believe the Bucs are in a place to where they can just start replacing these older veterans with their rookies. And maybe it does get to that point in the season, but I gotta believe Lenny's gonna get back to his normal workload here in Week 8. The Buccaneers really need a win. If he does end up getting that normal workload, this is a guy who's seen close to a 14% target share this year at the running back position. So he's really kind of game script proof. If the Bucs happen to get out to a lead in this game, well, he should see more rushing attempts. If they end up playing from behind in this game, more targets should go his way, and honestly, I kind of prefer that. And then we saw this running back get some steam last week for the Baltimore Ravens in Gus Edwards, his first NFL game back from that ACL injury. He only played 36% of the offensive snaps, but he also had 16 carries in that game and had 1 target. He also had 3 red zone rushing attempts that converted to 2 rushing touchdowns. At $7,600 here, I believe that he will be pretty popular. Unfortunately, as I record here, I don't have the projected ownerships quite yet. I hope we get word that he's going to be limited here, because that's exactly what he was last week. Again, he only played 36% of the offensive snaps, but when he is on the field, it seems like the Ravens want to get the ball in his hands. I then got Devin Duvernay there of the Baltimore Ravens. Now, do note that Rashad Bateman did practice in full on Wednesday. Honestly, if we're going to be rolling out Lamar Jackson in the captain spot, you want to stack him up with 2 of his pass catchers, you could go the Rashad Bateman, Devin Duvernay route. It's very affordable to do that. I like Devin Duvernay over Rashad Bateman, but I do believe that both are in play. The reason I like Duvernay more is because he's going to be in the slot for the majority of his routes, where he's going to see D. Delaney, who notoriously doesn't play in the slot, and has given up a 65% catch rate this year. What I really like is that that cornerback has played a total, or rather started a total of 3 NFL games over the course of 4 seasons. I know Devin Duvernay isn't a household name by any means, but he should be able to win in this matchup. Now, with Cameron Brate out last week, we saw Cade Otton play about 81% of the offensive snaps for the Buccaneers, and he saw 5 targets for 64 receiving yards, getting about 10.5 Draftkings points. I'll take that at this price here of $5,000, especially considering that Cameron Brate is not going to play here on Thursday night again, so we should see Cade Otton have a very similar role to what we saw last week. I then got the Ravens defense there, and they had a bit of a rough start to the year. They weren't horrible by any means, but gave up a lot of yards, especially back in week 2 against that Miami offense. But ever since then, they've kind of gotten back to their old ways here. Top 10 defense in the NFL. They're actually tied for first in the NFL with 14 turnovers. They have 22 sacks as well, which is tied for the 3rd most. So if Brady and the Bucs offensive woes continue here, like we've seen pretty much all year long, the Ravens could be in a good spot here on Thursday night. And then to wrap up the spreadsheet, I got the best kicker in the NFL in Justin Tucker, who's hit 33 of 35 field goals this year, while scoring at least 8 DraftKings points in 6 of 7 games. This is a guy who's got double-digit DraftKings point upside and could realistically hit 15 plus DraftKings points, and he could easily be priced higher than this. If you priced him at, let's say, the upper 4K range or $5,000, I believe people would still play him. Now, if you want to go with the kicker on the other side of this game, I do believe that Ryan Suckup is 100% okay as well. And then to wrap up this video here, we're going to take a look back at the Week 7 snap counts for both of these teams. Again, showing you who is and isn't on the field. That's pretty even split here across the board on the Baltimore Ravens side of things. What I don't love is they only had 21 passing plays last week. That's definitely got to increase here this week. What sticks out to me is really the running backs here. You can see it was kind of an even split between the 3 of Edwards, Hill, and Drake, but it was really Gus Edwards who took control of seeing the most carries. 11 carries for Kenyon Drake, that's too many in my opinion, especially considering that Justice Hill was better. But hey, that's why we look at these things here, because Kenyon Drake, at least he's still getting some opportunity. And then taking a look here at the Week 7 snap counts for the Buccaneers, two things really stick out to me. Number one, wide receiver situation. We know Godwin and Evans are number 1 and 2, but Russell Gage has been the wide receiver number 3. He is listed as out here on Thursday night. We very well could see Perriman, Miller, or even Darden there be a sleeper play as wide receiver number 3, so take a look into that. And then the running back situation here. I believe that Lenny is going to play more here this week and just get more volume than he saw last week. 11 touches or opportunities just isn't enough. But if Rachaad White does have a similar role this week, or even an increased role, I think he's an interesting play. I wouldn't touch him on a normal 11 or 12 game slate, but considering it's a showdown, it might mix him in on one of your tournament lineups, just in case he does play about 45% of the offensive snaps again. Alright everyone, that is going to wrap up this video here for today. As always, thank you all for taking the time out of your day to watch the content here on this channel. If you could like this video and subscribe to the channel, I would greatly appreciate that. Let's have ourselves a great day here, folks. Let's win some money here on this showdown slate. I'm out of here.